About 6 months ago, I got an email from somebody who's probably in this audience. I don't know who it was. But she asked me to please review the Ontario sex ed curriculum and to write something up about it. Well, that type of thing takes a very long time. It takes many hours. I've done it before. I did it for New York City, and I did it for New Zealand and for other places, and it's extremely time-consuming. So I had to just say, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. 3 months later, someone else contacted me. We really need you up here. Please, can you come? I looked at my schedule. It just wasn't doable. About a month ago, I get another email. Dr. Grossman, you must come up here. I started to do some reading to find out what's the story up here. And I learned that the sex ed curriculum was first introduced in 2010. It was canceled after parents protested. There was a promise to rethink and talk with parents, but apparently that was not done in any genuine manner. And now, the curriculum, here it is right here, is back, and it will be in place, I understand, next month. I read about the huge rallies that you had with thousands of people. The underlying message is that anyone who disagrees with this curriculum must be uneducated or a bigot. Furthermore, the creators of this curriculum, and evidently one of them is in jail for sexual crimes against children. The parts about diet, alcohol, smoking, and a lot of other things, it's actually quite good. The priority when they talk about those things is health. For students to stay free of disease and distress. The language is straightforward. There's no nonsense. There's lots of facts. Then you move on to the area called human development and sexual health. The approach here is altogether different. The priority is not your child's health. The priority is to mold your child's thinking and attitudes so that they respect and affirm and are comfortable with all sexual choices and lifestyles. This curriculum, like so many produced by the sex ed industry, is based on a specific view of the world. Not the world as it is, mind you, but the world as it should be. The world should be fair. When it comes to sexually transmitted infections, for example, no one group should suffer more than another as a result of their choices. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, and other infections, they should infect people in a random manner, unassociated with behavior. If you look at hard science, biology, physiology, neuroscience, infectious diseases, you find, without any question, that there are very significant differences. Girls and men who have sex with other men have much higher rates of infections. Anal intercourse is much more risky than vaginal intercourse. We, as responsible adults, have to deal with real life and teach children biological truths that could save their lives. We can't, for the sake of an idealistic vision of how the world should be in someone's mind, sacrifice the health and, yes, sometimes the lives of young people. And I have to say that that is what's going on in this curriculum. What's really going on here with this curriculum is an attempt to desensitize children. The ideology that animates the curriculum confuses sensitivity and modesty with shame and negative self-image, but there's a big, big difference. Now let's look at the guidance for sexual relationships. In grade 6, what should you consider when making any decision regarding a relationship? My comfort level, my personal and family values, my personal limits, and the limits and comfort of others are some of the things I should consider. As if a 6th grader can possibly know that. This is not developmentally appropriate. To determine one's comfort level, your personal and family values, your personal limits, and the limits and comfort of others, these are things that adults struggle with. Be clear in your own mind about what you are comfortable with. Being able to talk about this with a partner is an important part of sexual health. Having sex can be an enjoyable experience and can be an important part of a close relationship when you are older. Okay, let's take this apart. Let's start with when you are older. And it uses that phrase everywhere when it talks about sexual relationships, when you are older. So this is for grade 7. When will I be older? I'll be older in 8th grade. I'll be much older in 10th grade. 11th grade, forget it. Can I even wait that long? The message here is that the child will decide when they are ready. Instead of being told, you are not ready, and you won't be ready until you are an adult. As compared to diet and exercise and smoking, where the teacher is an authority and informs the child of what the risks are, and she doesn't downplay it and she doesn't use kid gloves, she puts it out there in an authoritative way with a firm expectation that the student is going to make the right choice. Over here, it's all up to the student to figure out. It's this complex thing that they have to look inside and know themselves and know the other person and so on and so forth. Grade 8. There are pros and cons. Again, it's complicated. There's pluses and minuses to being in a relationship. There are positive things. There are drawbacks to different levels of intimacy. It's all available to you. You just need to decide. This is a big mistake, and it's inconsistent with the approach that a responsible teacher or medical person or parent should take. I want to read to you what it would sound like if this curriculum used the same approach with sex education as they did with smoking, diet, etc. It would say something like this. It's possible to get an STD from one of the first times you have sex. You could discover warts on your penis or near your vagina. Genital warts are ugly and embarrassing. To get rid of them, you may need to go to a doctor who uses acid to burn them off. Even after treatment, the warts often return for years. It's also possible to get blisters on these areas. Blisters on your private parts hurt a lot. Sometimes the pain is so severe that people have trouble walking, and they can't even go to school or work. It's not an easy thing to explain. The blisters eventually disappear, but they tend to come back, especially when you're under stress. An outbreak can ruin a vacation, a prom, or your wedding. Another thing that could happen, even the first time, and even with a condom, is you or your partner could get pregnant. That's a real life changer, whether you give birth or have an abortion. There are entire books written about women and men who deeply regret ending their pregnancies. Finally, you could get HIV. Sooner or later, HIV becomes AIDS, and AIDS will kill you. That's what it would sound like. Another thing that this curriculum completely ignores is the fact that the brain of a child and an adolescent is immature. Even bright, mature teenagers sometimes do things that are stupid. Don't we all know that? But when that happens, it's not really their fault. It's because their brain hasn't finished developing. The underdeveloped area is called the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. It's right here behind the forehead, right there. It plays a critical role in decision making, problem solving, and understanding future consequences of today's actions. The problem is, it won't be fully mature until they're in their 20s. Now, this is something that we've known since the early 90s, mid-90s really, for a long time. We've known this about the teen brain. Somehow, this information doesn't get into sex education. And the reason is it doesn't jive with their ideology that people are sexual from cradle to grave, and they should act on their sexual urges at any time. The truth is that you can give a child and adolescent as much information, you can give them hours and hours of instruction about sexuality, about consent, about birth control, about how to figure out yourself and who you are and your values and the other person's values. You can talk until you're blue in the face. They'll go out, and if they put themselves in a tempting situation, many of them will go ahead and act on it and do things they will later regret. Why? Not because they don't have enough information. Their wiring isn't complete. They do things impulsively. They make decisions based on emotion, based on a lower part of their brain, gut reactions, emotions. And then later, when you ask them, what were you thinking when you did that? They say, I guess I wasn't thinking, right? And they're right. They actually weren't thinking. We need to bring this neuroscience, which is what it is, into sex education so that teachers and parents and also teenagers and children understand this, so they know not to even get close to a situation that they will later regret. This curriculum, when it comes to sexual curriculum, is entrenched in ideology. Instead of having as its goal the protection of students' health and well-being, it's centered on indoctrinating the child with a set of beliefs. Those set of beliefs may or may not be consistent with their parents' values. And it most certainly is not based on current knowledge about child and adolescent development, sexually transmitted diseases, neuropsychology, and many other areas. It cannot be based on current science because current science undermines the worldview. And when the truths of science run contrary to the ideology, they're ignored. They simply don't exist. What they do, and this is what happens in every instance, they attack the messenger. Curriculum fails also in its own mission to respect the diversity of cultures in the schools. I cannot imagine how a child coming from a traditional Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, etc., I hope I'm not leaving out lots of people, I cannot imagine how those kids feel. And you know what? They have, it's just the most amazing thing. They actually have 2 pages in this curriculum called Equity and Inclusive Education in Health and Physical Education, and it's all about respecting diversity, all students, parents, all members, regardless of ancestry, they're welcome and included and respected. Do your kids see yourselves in this curriculum? No. So to conclude, this is all about a crusade to change society, to desensitize children, to indoctrinate them with falsehoods. Instead of fighting deadly viruses and bacteria, this curriculum is fighting homophobia. I encourage you to stand firm. Your voices matter. Science is in your corner. Parents know what's best for their children, not educator activists.